Hi, thank you, Lawrence, and thank you everyone for attending. It's nice to see some familiar names and faces out there. And for those of you that I don't know, I look forward to getting to know you more. I am the executive director with the REN-ISAC, which you'll see what it stands for, but I have to say it, the Research and Education Networks Information Sharing and Analysis Center. So it's a very long name. I think one of my colleagues is here with me, Chip Conorondo. So you might see him in a separate window. I'm just going to talk a little bit about what the REN-ISAC is and how we can help you. So of course I have slides. Hang on a second. So as I mentioned, our name is rather long, and there's some reasoning around that. First of all, let me pop onto my next slide. Our mission is a pretty broad mission. We are here to aid and promote cybersecurity operational protection and response within the research and higher ed communities. So we look at research and education, not just higher ed, not just research, but both. And the networks is, we're research and education networks. That's sort of some old framing, old terminology from when we were started in the early 2000s. But we still stand by that. And we aid and promote the protection and response through information sharing among members that I'll talk about more as we move forward. The REN-ISAC has over 700 member institutions from all different levels of institutions. Some of them are just research centers. Some of them are federally funded research and development centers. Others are, full R1 higher ed institutions, smaller higher ed institutions, and that's changing all the time. We're always seeing new and different people come in, and we welcome them. We're happy to have more members. Member institutions.
All right.
The member reps we have over 3,000 member reps. And so the member institution might have as few as one member and as many as 20 members. The average is about 3 members per institution. So you can see that that's very broad too. And so we're trying to meet, we meet a variety of needs for people in different roles. Everyone has a role in cybersecurity. We all have responsibilities there if we're in technology. So we love and represent and have an enterprise view of that. If you have a role in cybersecurity, we've got a place for you and information for you. Our members are from the United States, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and the UK. We have a few additional members that we granted membership as an exception because they worked mainly with research institutions in those 5 countries. So it just made sense to include them. We do this with 16 full-time staff plus a few interns. The interns are critical to moving our work forward, so we really like having them around. As I said, we were established in the early 2000s. We were one of the first ISACs. I know the health ISAC was there before us, IT ISAC, financial ISAC. So there were some others. And what happened was the president in Indiana University at the time, I'm sorry, he was vice president at the time, Dr. Michael McRobbie, he saw that higher ed and research was not represented as a critical infrastructure in the ISAC setup when other industries were creating their information sharing coordination centers. So he felt like that was not looking at the full picture, that was a gap, and he worked with the federal government to get the REN-ISAC recognized as an official ISAC. We are not funded by the government. We are funded mainly through our member dues. And then we also represent, in addition to serving on the National Council of ISACs with the other ISACs, I think there are 28 other ISACs right now, 27 maybe. We also represent R&E to the US government. So if Department of Education is working on something that impacts cybersecurity, we're happy to work with them and work with our members at the table to try to figure out what's the right approach to that. So information sharing, that's what we do. And we do it in a couple different ways. So I've got a few cross cuts on this that I wanted to share. Manual person-to-person sharing, that might be through webinars, it might be through member meetings, it might be at conferences. We have a very, very active mailing list. where people share with each other on that, and we share out to them on that. And then we also do automated sharing, where machine to machine, through our what we call our automated threat intelligence sharing information. And I have a slide about that, so we'll talk about that a little more in a few slides. So the way that we're different from other ISACs, most ISACs do hub to spoke sharing, so that the ISAC creates all the content and shares it out to its members. And there's some discussion, but it's mainly around that hub to spoke model. We also, so we'll send things out. Actually, that's the second, the picture on the right here. So I should have started with the other one. So we'll share something out. We wrote a paper, an alert, an advisory on tension in the Ukraine, and shared that out to our members. But we also see members sharing with each other. So that's spoke to spoke sharing. And that's where we are different from most of the other ISACs, because we facilitate that. We love that. I'm not the expert on actively exploited vulnerability in a Lucian EIS, but someone in our community is. So I make it possible for that person to share out to other members. And then those members can engage with the person who shared that directly and get really good operational best practices info about what to do and how to do it better. So we love that. In our information sharing, the hub to spoke model that we do, we also do a lot of pass-through information from maybe things from CISA or the FBI. We'll pass that along. We have tons of sources of information in our information products that we send out. And we always ask ourselves 3 or 4 questions on that. Is the information accurate? We love it when it's from a governmental agency, because they do a really good job in ensuring accuracy. But sometimes we do share things from news sources. And so we always ask, is it accurate? Is it relevant? Is this something that our community needs to know to do a better job with cybersecurity? So is it relevant, not just in general for cybersecurity, but also particular to our community? And is it timely? So that's, is it something that happened last week or last year? Now, with those 3 things in mind, we err on the side of oversharing. People can filter. We're fine with people filtering. You don't have to read about what's going on in Lucian if you don't use that product, right? So, but Microsoft, everyone's going to kind of care about Microsoft. So we're going to err on the side of oversharing and let people make their own selection. So even though those are our 3 guiding principles, if maybe the FBI puts out something that's 6 months old, we're probably going to share it anyway and let you decide if that's valuable to you. We share in accordance with CISA's information sharing, what they call the traffic light protocol. And these are our guidelines. These are the REN-ISAC guidelines. So we use the CISA information sharing protocol. And this is a really good way for us all to understand what we can share more broadly. So maybe I get something, maybe the REN-ISAC gets something from the health ISAC and it's TLP Amber. Well, I can send that to our members, but they can't really share it beyond that. So I would say, this is TLP Amber. Don't forward it to anyone outside of your organization. So this allows us to have sort of quick speak and quick understanding of what the sharing is. And then we can always add things to it, like, don't share this without permission from the creator. Maybe it's someone at a university who created it and they want to know who's talking about it. So you can set other caveats that support the TLP sharing. So this is a real valuable way that we share and we make people comfortable and trust that their things aren't going to get overshared. This is especially important with incident related things, because maybe you're saying, oh, we were hit by, this malware, and we saw 15 IP addresses hit last night. We don't want to get that. We don't want that to get out. That's up to that institution to decide who knows that. But they're just sharing internally to encourage other people to look for it. And we want to encourage them to do that. So let's keep things grounded in these TLP rules, and then we can move forward. So as I said, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot the 4th criteria. So the 4th, I said timely, relevant, accurate, and then the 4th is actionable. We tend to share things that someone can take action upon. That's very important too. So we like to provide members, and as much as possible, we send to the public too. It might not be at the in-depth information that we send to members because we don't have that trust formation. We don't have the TLP to support us, but maybe we'll make it more general and not send IP addresses, not send, victim information or anything like that, and send something and post something to the public too. So we try to make, in either case, we try to make it actionable. What can you do about this? And so we don't want to waste, we don't want to waste a lot of time. We want you to be able to get to the information you need and make the decisions you need to know, need to make, because timing is very important in cybersecurity response. So one piece of actionable information sharing we do is we run a cybersecurity incident response team. And so we take in a ton of information from a ton of different sources, federal government, state governments, private industry, and we parse through that and we say, oh, it looks like this IP address belongs at this EDU, and this endpoint, this IP address was most likely breached or was absolutely breached. And we know that by looking at the network, like what's happening on the network, what's emanating from that endpoint. So you can make, we've learned to be very analytical in this, right? So we know, oh, that looks a lot like this type of malware. We can even tell what type of malware it is. So we get that to EDUs in the US space. Sometimes we get it to our global partners if we have good contact information on them, but we always get it to people in the EDU space. You don't have to be a member of REN-ISAC. We provide this to everyone because we know that it's going to allow you to take action and be more protective. So we have these continuous feeds, as I mentioned, from trusted third parties. That's where the information comes from. It's not always 100% accurate, but it's pretty accurate, we found, over years and years of doing this. So I wanted to dive into some examples of what we're seeing. These are the notifications we sent out in 2020 and 2021. We sent out in 2021, I'm going to focus on that because that's the most current. We sent out almost 29,000 notifications about compromised machines. And that would be this, it looks like this machine is infected with this sort of malware. So we send that out. We provide as much information about the malware as we can to you, and some ideas on how you might clean it or what you might do about it. And so again, you can take action on that. So that was you can see that's our largest category for both years. However, the compromised credentials is a little undercounted in this because this counts the number of notifications we sent out, not the number of compromised credentials. So maybe it's a large credential breach. I'm thinking back a few years, but the one we saw at LinkedIn. So LinkedIn was a victim of having their credentials stolen. And a lot of people at research and education institutions use their net ID at the university or at the research institution as their credential to get into LinkedIn, right? Because that's our professional place. That's where we discuss our profession. So when they did that, we got all the credentials for any.edu that was part of that breach, and we send something to the institution and say, it looks like you had credentials breached. We don't know if it was login ID and password or just the login ID, but most universities and research institutions can figure that out if we give them the information that we have. So we pull that information and then we send it out. So what you see here in the compromised credentials, that's the number of notifications we sent to different institutions. Now, one institution in the LinkedIn breach, many institutions had just one compromised credential. Many more had 250, 350, over 1,000. So one notification might represent multiple credentials. This is a pretty big deal. And the way we handle those, the way you handle them is fairly complex. You have to do some analysis to see if it's the password, the login plus password pair, And if it is, you have to take steps to block that or filter it or make them change their password to protect their resources in your internal situation as well. So those are our two biggest areas. Those are the areas where we see the most volume and most criticality. So we get all of our, we use our systems to our advantage here. So these always go out within 24 hours of when we receive them, usually a lot sooner than that. Usually it's like an hour or two. And so we just kind of have a constant churn on that to get the information to people, to get the information to you, to take action on it and protect your resources. So thinking about the compromised machines a little more, this is a crosscut of the third quarter of 2021. The different malware, the top 10 malware, I think it's 10. Sometimes I go with 11 because it's too close. But this is the top 10 malware things that we notified on, right? So Andromeda, we sent out over 1,000 notifications. And you can see there are a variety, why are our people getting hit with banking Trojans? Well, most bad actors, most criminals who utilize the malware for their crimes tend to do what we call we have cute nicknames for everything. So we tend to call it spray and pray, that they'll send it out to everyone and see what they can get, that they might be able to get banking information, account information from an individual's workstation, even though they're really going with something big for something bigger than that, but they're happy to take it. Or they might be able to use that as a springboard and then get into other resources in an institution once they've gotten in the front door. So you can see the type. The other thing that always is a little shocking to me is the year the vulnerability was discovered. Most of these are pretty old. So we know Configure, I can tell you a little bit about why that's still an issue. So many health, education attached health institutions have to use equipment and software that is included in that equipment, like medical diagnostic equipment. And those are notoriously behind in their operating systems. And so Configure is still a big issue with that equipment, that health equipment. So we know that that's part of it. But we don't know why we see so much old stuff. And the criminals who use the malware are going to keep using the old stuff as long as it's effective. Anything to get in that front door. So we're going to keep seeing the same abuses. So that's just a quick oversight of the CSIRT activities. I want to talk about a few of our other services that we provide that people find really helpful. We put out a daily situational awareness email right now that we call the Daily Watch Report. So, and this one's a little bit old, it's from 2019, but just to give you an idea of some of the things we send out. And what we do is we scan the news constantly. This is mainly public news, so TLP, green or white. And so we scan that. We might look at over 250 sources of information in one day. And we find the best article about a given subject, and we'll post it. So you can see we have critical notices, upcoming events, things like that. So we'll post that in the Daily Watch. Many of our members find this very useful. They say it's one of our most valuable services. Someone always tells me that he starts the morning with coffee and the Daily Watch. It's a good way to kind of get his mind in order about what's out in the broader community that he needs to think about and watch for. I alluded to this earlier, our automated threat intelligence system. So this does a lot of the automated crunching. We, as I said, we take in all this information through our information sharing relationships with trusted third parties. Some of them are governmental, some of them are private corporations. And so we bring all that information together and we crunch it, and then we give it to our members in a way so that the members can use it to block activity or to watch activity. So maybe you're using it in a security event system, maybe you're using it in a firewall. And then the thing that our threat intelligence system does that not a lot of them do is we'll give you a confidence. Like we're like, this the source is great on this, and we got it from multiple sources. So we have a pretty high confidence that this is bad stuff and you want to block it. And then if we're less confident, maybe it's the first time we're seeing that source and we don't know it. We'll say, you know, we're only 70% confident on this, so that our members can make intelligent decisions based on that confidence level. And like I said, maybe they're going to block, maybe they're going to watch it, maybe they're not going to do anything. But we give you that information to help you. This is something we started doing this year. We call it our emerging threats or developing threats. And this is right now it's in our member wiki. We're going to be moving to a member portal soon that will make it much easier to search for things than our current wiki does, and also keep it updated and keep the conversation going. Again, kind of enabling that spoke to spoke facilitation that we do so well right now. So these are the last couple. It's until May, things were not huge. You know, we weren't seeing a lot of bad developing issues. We're still dealing with Log4Shell. That's just the gift that keeps on giving right now. So we have updated this. You can see that we just posted something from June on it. And then Felina, the Microsoft vulnerability, it was also a May thing. So we're still seeing that come out too. So we just keep this updated. We update old, we're adding new developing threats all the time. And so it's just a quick place where members can go and look at and say, do I need to do anything about this? Do we use that product? Do I need to patch that vulnerability? Do we have concerns about that? So they can come and get it all in one place. This is another thing on our wiki, just around the Ukrainian activity. We haven't seen much recently on that, but there's still talk of, lots of cyber happening. And we know that happened previously in Ukraine. I don't know how many of you read the book Sandworm, but it's about Russia doing pretty critical cyber criminal activity in Ukraine in the past. So we know that happened. So we've been keeping that updated as well. The government has been, CISA in particular, has been super helpful with what they've been putting out. So again, it's just a source where our members can go and find out the information they need on this. This is from our public website. All of our alerts and advisories, we do a public version of. It might not be the same one we do to members for exactly the reason I'd articulated before, which is maybe there's some sensitive information that we don't want to release. So we'll rewrite it and make it more general. So this is, these are our latest advisories that we sent out. Advisories are you need to know about this. Alerts are you need to do something about this. So we kind of try to use words so that people can easily recognize urgency and criticality. We partner with many, many different organizations. That's valuable for information gathering and information sharing both. So you can see we partner with many security organizations. And then we also have relationships with the Center for Applied, I love the alphabet soup on the right hand, sorry for that. Center for Applied Cybersecurity Research, the Canadian state-run Security Operations Center, the Global Network Operations Center, which is housed at IU. At IU, and so is OmniSOC, which is a university consortium of security operations centers. State of Indiana's Executive Council on Cybersecurity is another important source. They both a source, and we provide information to them. They do a lot of great stuff around training and awareness, so we like to stay on top of that. So we try to extend these. Maybe we'll have people come in from the partners and present. SANS is a great partner and presenter because they do so much research for their security training that we love them to come in and present. They've got some really good trainers that will present for free for webinars for our members. We also, and it's not listed here, but I mentioned it before, the National Council of ISACs, the Health ISAC and the Financial ISAC recently partnered with Microsoft to take down a malware actor. And so we had them come in and present about what that takedown looked like and walk through it. And it was a great learning opportunity for our members to hear from the Microsoft lawyer and the CIO at the Health ISAC, and kind of walk through the makings of the case and the information that they used for that takedown. So that's another partnership that's ongoing, is with the National Council of ISACs. A few other things about some of the additional services. We do cybersecurity assessments at institutions. And those are not just for members. We'll do them for anyone who needs one. And the sort of the catch for ours is we have peers do the assessment. So it's not just a consultant who comes in and they consult at this institution and that institution, and blah blah blah. It's someone. It's probably a CISO at another institution. So they have the in-depth operational knowledge. Again, there's that focus on operational that we are so, tied to in our mission, so completely committed to. So we have peers go out and provide that service. And then we sort of provide a program around that to make it easier on them, so that they can just focus on the expertise and not have to worry about travel or developing a team or anything like that. We've got their backs on that. So it's really if you might be interested in having an assessment, or you might be interested in being a peer, and you might do both. We have people who do both. So that's a really exciting opportunity for our members. I mentioned our relationship with SANS and some of the webinars and workshops we do. So we do try to pay attention to cybersecurity education and provide that out to people as much as possible. Constantly doing analysis reports. The one about tensions in Ukraine is a good example, where we analyze the situation, got it out to people. We do that about legislation or pending legislation, about technology use in general. So a variety of subjects that we provide out to the members and also the public on that. We have a data sharing agreement around passive DNS information, which is just a treasure trove of ways to look for compromises, potential compromises, and make decisions based on that. So that's another. It's kind of complex to set up. So it's not just a toggle switch that you can turn on, but once it's set up, there's a lot of information that can be gleaned from that. And then we participate with EDUCAUSE and Internet 2 on the higher ed community vendor assessment toolkit, which is a security questionnaire that can be provided to vendors to allow institutions to make smart decisions. Is that vendor, do their security services meet our needs? So it's a very, it can be long and complex. There's two versions of the toolkit. One is a 250 question version, and the other one is about 100 questions. So maybe you only use a 250 question version for your most sensitive, secure areas, data areas, whereas the light version, the 100 question version, you can use for, well, this isn't quite as sensitive, so we don't need that level of discussion. So that's another proud accomplishment of ours. And like I said, we love working with EDUCAUSE and Internet 2 on that. That's really all I have. I know that was a lot, and I talk really fast because you can tell I love our work and I'm very committed to our mission. So I'll stop. Happy to answer questions now. You can see our website, look for more information, and you can contact me at the email address there.
Kim, thank you for your presentation about REN-ISAC. I found it very insightful. I wanted to open the floor, give everybody an opportunity who had any questions to ask their questions now.
Part of that HECVAC, what does you're going over price assessments for vendors and comparing them with other members, is that right?
No, we aren't really comparing them at this point, although that might be on the table. So all we do is provide a questionnaire, a common questionnaire that all research and education institutions can use in assessing the vendors. And so now we are hearing from more and more members that they're like, well, who else has done an assessment on this vendor that we can share or we can learn from? So we're thinking about that as a future deliverable as part of the HECVAT.
I was told somebody has a hand up, and unfortunately, I can't identify whose hand is up. I guess just with the way my
It's
my
Bobby.
screen- Okay.
Thank you for your information. My question's in the chat. I was very curious about how specifically you contribute to the HECVAC. What is your role in that in creating that document and assessment?
We helped to create the questions back, I want to say it's 6 years ago now. And then as we update the questions, we contribute to that too. So we tend to use for our own peer assessments, we tend to use NIST cybersecurity framework as a basis. So we'll look at the cybersecurity framework and how that's being interpreted now, and look at the questions and either add questions if we see gaps, delete questions that are no longer relevant, and or enhance the questions for today's technology environment. So really it's that base level. We also usually like to let people know that the HECVAT is available to them. So we might ask members to participate in a panel or a webinar and explain how they use it. So we do some, I would call it administrative promotional activity as well, but our main area is around the development of the questions.
Are there any other questions? I'm sorry, go ahead.
So is it more of getting the best price out of the thing, or getting knowledge-based training on that, or kind of sharing information on what worked out and what didn't work out?
For HECVAT,
Yes.
it's more about can this vendor that my institution is talking to, can they secure things in accordance to our policies? And so, a lot of times the HECVAT, these 250 questions, maybe they don't quite fit your institution because your policy is a little different. So, maybe the HECVAT says, how do you notify individuals that there's a credential breach? But maybe your policy says to do it differently. So you might have to tweak that question, but it's this base of questions that the institution hands to the vendor, and then the vendor gives it back. And so one of the advantages of that approach is once a vendor completes a HECVAT, they can give it to as many institutions as requested, right? So they don't have to keep answering individual questionnaire by individual questionnaire. They can do it once. And there's always some nuance to that. Like I said, that you might have specific policies, but that's really the strength of the HECVAT. The vendors love it because it saves them a ton of time in providing these answers to institutions.
And if I could just follow up a little bit to clarify a little bit. So again, not about price, but then someone like Clemson or Claflin or South Carolina State or your institution can look at that and not have to go and get those answers from that vendor. You're also getting them in a normalized way that you can compare the answers and make judgments on whether or not they're living up to whatever standard you're trying to impose. So it's a certain help, but I was curious on just how REN-ISAC was contributing to it. So forgive me if I didn't hear everything you said, because I had some interconnection trouble. But my assumption is that you're participating that on a annual level and modifying that HECVAT
Yes.
based on needs and requirements. So that's the answer I wanted to hear, and hopefully that helps you out too, man. So you can see how that could be useful to you. It's not a price comparison; it's more like a feature and characteristic comparison.
Especially around cybersecurity and compliance.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. You worded that very well, Bobby.
Are there any other questions?
There is one in the chat
Hi, Kim. This is Steve Burrell with Northern Arizona University. I'm just kind of interested, and again, I may have missed the subtleties of this, but how is REN-ISAC preparing for the proliferation of what will likely be millions, if not billions, of IoT devices, and our ability to monitor and respond to very large-scale sensor deployments across diverse software-defined RENs?
That's a tough question, but a really good one, Steve. Thank you. We pay attention to it mainly from a threat perspective. So we look at the threats and we see ones that are specific to IoT devices. For instance, the medical equipment that I made mention of, that we know that that's an issue. So but I'm not sure that we're preparing with it. I think we are still preparing for it. I think we're still response mode on that. So how do we help? That's a really good question. How do we help turn from a response reactive state into a proactive state on that? In general, research and education institutions have mechanisms that can help around maybe security event monitoring, log monitoring, and network controls, but I don't think we've put a full piece together on that. So maybe that should be one of our next an information analysis that we need to write.
Thanks, Kim. I can appreciate the difficulty of it and just the sheer magnitude of the amount of data and telemetry coming in and out of those systems is formidable. So thank you. I appreciate it.
And thank you. I'm going to bring that up to my analysts.
Are there any other questions? Nothing heard.
I did have something really quick, Lawrence. I'm sorry, I don't want to take up much of the time here, but I was curious because I can sense some of the apprehension that doing so, that we're looking at ADVAC 2 and some of the other things that are out there, that there is a huge jump from being aware of these items and using them effectively. What is your organization doing to lessen that gap? For many of the institutions on this call would be interested how you get started without being overwhelmed. Stop drinking from the fire hose and maybe get a cup of water. What are you doing to advance that notion and making it easier for colleges and institutions to participate in this?
It's another great question. Something that we started this year is a member spotlight that we do monthly, and it's posted on our public website. And so we've kind of been focusing on specific issues. So cyber insurance is huge for everyone right now. Either, you're constantly looking, maybe your provider doesn't want to provide you it anymore, or they're making you fill out a really long questionnaire before they'll say yes, and then they're charging you more for it. So this is impacting everyone across the board. And so we had a member write up his experience and thoughts on that. And again, we like going to the experts, and the experts, we're not necessarily the experts, but we can give other institutions access to those experts through our members. So, things like that. I think I'm trying to think of the next one we were going to do. Drawing a blank though, but looking at things, I think that's probably what we can do with Stephen's IoT question. Like, how do we deal with those? So really finding those experts in the field and then giving you access to their ways of dealing with it, right? And it's hands-on, it's operational. So look, finding opportunities like that to provide that information. We've also written some ourselves. We did a ransomware advisory in 2021, and one of our great engineers wrote up, here's the top 4 things you need to do. We read what CISA puts out. Sometimes I have a love-hate relationship with CISA. I don't know if it's CISA or CISA. Sometimes what they write is so general that it's like, use good security practices. Oh, we're done with that. We can pat ourselves on the back. But other times it is really relevant, timely information. It'll be like, use MFA and set it up in this way. So, we will always push that through and let members decide if that's helpful or not. But sometimes, yeah, sometimes my members yell at me and say, that's too general. Like, I know, but I want to make sure they see it or are aware that it exists if they need it.
Excellent.
That advisory sounds really good. I'm hoping you can make that available to us.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, Kim, I wanted to say thank you for your presentation today. I really appreciate you sharing your information. And if it's okay with you, we can send the slides out to our MSCC members.
Absolutely.
Thank you again. With that being said, we're going to follow on with our agenda. Next, we have Anna, who's our PI for the COE. She's going to have a few words for the group.
Hi, everybody. Good morning or good afternoon. It's really good to see you. I'll be brief. First, and I'm sure Lawrence will tell you more, we're really excited that we've been able to kick off the first campus-based activities. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Anna? All right, nothing heard. All right, Anna, thank you for sharing. I wanted to, as we close the meeting, wanted to give a quick update on some of the MSCC activities. I wanted to start with a special thank you to Tom Jackson, as Anna said, and the campus of North Carolina A&T for hosting our first workshop. It is an exciting moment for us to really start being able to get out and be on campus. It's exciting for a couple reasons. I know after the pandemic, we're all used to doing things virtually, but it's good to be able to be out and share with people and see people and just interact. It's also exciting because this marks the beginning of a series of workshops that the MSCC is doing to build that community centric, right? We want to build centers of excellence based on region. All of our workshops are really based on, with a few exceptions, participating universities within a 250-mile radius. And we do that intentionally so we can build a community. And we want feedback from everyone. We want you to participate in our MSCC all hands. And as we share this information, I think of the MSCC as that connective tissue for us to come together and to share information and also to learn from one another. Also want to highlight that we now have an MSCC Slack channel that is to be used if there are questions for the group, if there's information that we can share. I have, at the beginning of the summer, we're getting a lot of, I guess I would say communication about just opportunities with students or opportunities with different organizations where they may want to participate in research programs or just to see if anybody has interest in a couple different topics. So we'll be using that, the Slack channel, to share that type of information. Are there any questions? We have a couple minutes. Is there anything for the group before I go on to talk about our future activities with the MSCC? As far as the Slack channel, everyone who is on this call will have access to the Slack channel. You should receive an invite if you haven't already. Please feel free to, again, if there's any information that you have questions on when it comes to the MSCC, we're more than excited to answer those questions. And again, it is going to be used just as a small communication tool. I'm also available by email. If you don't have my email, it's at the bottom of my signature block. Feel free to message me during this meeting, and I can reach out to you individually if there is an individual need to have my contact information if you don't already have it. And the Slack channel is I2-MS-CC. Also, Emily Nichols is available if there's questions about the MSCC or questions about upcoming events as well. With that being said, I do want to highlight the next few workshops because, again, this is a series of workshops that we're having. We're not just stopping with just one. Our next workshop is going to be held at Salish Kootenai University in Pablo, Montana. That's going to be the 17th and 18th of August. That's with our tribal college and university universities. We'll have that there. Then we're going to follow up in, I believe, October, November with Jackson State. And then we will have additional workshops that we're scheduling with Claflin and Alabama A&M. We're working on our 2023 workshop schedule. So there are additional workshops. If there's not one already scheduled in your area, don't worry, there are more to come. Are there any questions as we come to a close with the all hands?
Hey, Lawrence, this is Demir. Do you mind if I make a small announcement?
Absolutely.
So I'd like to announce that the previous interim CIO at Alabama A&M is now the CIO at Alabama A&M. That's Dr. Kylie Nash. I'd like to recognize my CIO at TSU, Tim Warren. Also, I'd like to recognize my cousin from another auntie, the CISO of Alabama A&M, Richard Maxwell. And I also see one of my mentors from originally South Carolina State University, now the CIO at Benedict College, Mr. Anthony Cardwell. I just want to say hello to everyone. Thank you for joining us. It's always happening. And my dear friend from North Carolina Central, Leah. Really nice to see all of you. And interim provost, Dr. Hussein from Fisk University here in Nashville. I was just on a meeting with him earlier this morning. I want to thank all of you for attending this event and all of the events to come that Lawrence outlined previously. It's really welcoming and heartwarming to see such a large crowd. Thank you.
Damian, thank you for the recognition. Thank you for sharing, and congratulations again to Dr. Nash. Congratulations, and thank you for everybody who's sharing the word about the MSCC. Our participation is growing, and there's more that we want to do. So this is just the beginning. So please share with your friends. And I'll also put out a charge that we are looking for more active participants and ideas for the MSCC. So feel free to reach out to me if you want to spread the word of the MSCC. We're looking at avenues to have our CIOs do that, whether it's a conference or just various venues. Please, let's talk about it because we want to get the word out. Also, if you have concepts or ways or suggestions that we can make the MSCC better, please feel free to reach out to me or Emily so we can implement those changes as we're growing. Any other comments or questions? I'm checking for the hand raise. We have so many people now that I have multiple screens that I have to flip through. So this is a good problem to have. So nothing heard. So we'll get a couple minutes back, but thank you everyone for attending. Look forward to next month's meeting. I will be sending communications to everyone. If you have any questions for me, please feel free to reach out. Have a great 4th of July weekend, and we'll talk to everyone in a couple weeks.